Every shift, there's a moment when the noise fades. The patient's gone, the paperwork's done, and it's just you, the road, and everything you're still thinking about. This is when the real conversations start. The ones about calls that didn't sit right. The things we do because that's how we were taught. And the quiet question nobody says out loud. Are we actually doing the best we can? EMS is built on tradition, but medicine keeps moving, whether we move with it or not. This show is about closing that gap between old habits and new evidence, between doing things right and doing things because we always have. No hype, no hero talk, just honest conversations about pre-hospital medicine, the same ones we have in the truck, in the station, and on the drive back when the sirens are off. This is the ToneDrop Podcast. So, if you explain EMS out loud to a normal person, you sound insane, like genuinely unwell. If someone from HR sat down and listened to how we talk, they'd call a meeting immediately. Because EMS logic is not real logic. It's a completely separate operating system. And the worst part, we all pretend that it makes sense. This episode is for the people who have ever said something absolutely unhinged with a straight face and thought, yeah, that tracks. Welcome back. This is the ToneDrop Podcast. All right, we're doing something different today. Episode 3 was heavy. It was emotional. It made people text their partners like, hey, do you think I'm okay? So today, no lessons, no morals, no growth. Today is just us laughing at how stupid this job can be sometimes. Because if you don't laugh at EMS, I promise EMS is laughing at you. This episode is called EMS Logic is Not Real Logic, because nothing about this job holds up under scrutiny. Not the calls, not the policies, not the conversations, and definitely not the things that come out of people's mouths at 2 a.m. And if you're not an EMS and somehow listening to this, you're about to understand why we can't function in normal society. So let's start here. EMS has phrases that, if you say them slowly, sound like you're lying. For example, he's a frequent flyer, but he's actually sick this time. Read that again. That sentence should not exist. That's like saying, this raccoon usually lives in my trash, but today he has a warrant. Or, vitals are trash, but he looks okay. What does that mean? Which one are we believing? The blood pressure of 72 over vibes? Or the fact that he's sitting there eating Doritos? We just shrug and go, yeah, he looks aight. Another favorite, we'll just transport to be safe. That's not medicine, that's fear with wheels. What are we being safe from? Responsibility? And everyone nods like, yeah, that's a plan. No one questions it. We just load and go like a ritual offering. So let's talk about EMS math. EMS math is fake math. It follows no known rules. For example, we're only 10 minutes from end of shift. That means you're absolutely getting a call. Not maybe, not possibly, guaranteed. Doesn't matter if you're parked, doesn't matter if dispatch is quiet, doesn't matter if you whispered it. The universe heard you. Another EMS math problem. A 12-hour shift is actually 6 hours of chaos, 4 hours of boredom, and 2 hours of why am I still awake? A 24-hour shift is the longest 4 days of your life, followed by 6 minutes of sleep, followed by a call for toe pain. And somehow that math checks out. So let me paint you a picture. 3:17 in the morning. Dead quiet. You're finally asleep. Dispatch tones out. Unit 12, respond for foot pain. Foot pain. You arrive. The patient meets you at the door, fully dressed, lights on, house immaculate, 3 cars in the driveway. You ask, so what's going on tonight? The patient says, yeah, my toe's been hurting. Okay, how long? Like 3 days. 3 days. You ask the follow-up question that we all ask, why tonight? And the patient says, oh, well, I just figured I should get it checked out. At 3:17, by an ambulance. We do the assessment. Toe looks like a toe. Vitals are perfect. Pain scale like an 8. Sure it is. You transport, you chart, you question your life choices. That call exists in every system, every medic, every year. EMS bingo free space. So let's talk about some stupid things that patients have said, because patients say some wild stuff. You ask any medical history. The patient says no. You scroll through their chart, diabetes, CHF, COPD, 3 stents, a pacemaker. You say, sir, you have a pacemaker. He goes, oh, yeah, well, that was a while ago. A while ago, it's still in you. Or, what medication do you take? Patient says, oh, just the white one. Cool, helpful, very helpful, fantastic. Or my favorite, I don't have chest pain. 5 seconds later, when you're at the hospital, well, unless you count this crushing pressure, yes, that does count. It absolutely does. So let's talk about personality types in EMS, because EMS has personality types like Pokemon. First, you have the brand new medic. Everything is by the book. They quote protocols mid-sentence.
Well, according to page 47, subsection B.
Relax, Hogwarts, it's a nosebleed. Then there's the cowboy. No gloves, no notes, just vibes. Trust me. No, sir, I do not. Then the burned out realist. They're not mean, they're just done. Yeah, we'll transport, of course we will, we always do. And somehow, they're usually right. All right, so take a breath, hydrate, laugh it off. If you're listening and nodding, congratulations, you're one of us, and we're not done. So let's talk about everybody's favorite thing, the dumb things our partners have said we're done. Because every medic has had at least one partner who should not be trusted with silence. You know the one, the kind of person who opens their mouth on scene and you immediately think, okay, cool, now I have to chart around that. You're on scene for a patient with shortness of breath. Family everywhere, tension is high. Partner walks in and says loudly, oh yeah, he looks bad. Bro, why would you say that? Another classic, you're assessing a patient, you're mid-question. Your partner interrupts with, so when was the last time you almost died? What does that mean? Or my personal favorite, you ask your partner to grab something simple, like oxygen. They come back with the wrong size, the wrong setup, or nothing at all. And they say, I thought you meant the other one. No, I meant the one that keeps people alive. So let's talk about dispatch, because EMS and dispatch kind of have a love-hate relationship. Dispatch and EMS communicate in a dialect no linguist could ever decode. For example, dispatch says, Unit 12, patient is having difficulty breathing. You arrive, the patient is breathing fine, talking, laughing. You radio back, patient is not in distress. Dispatch responds, caller states the patient looked like they were breathing weird earlier. Earlier when? Last week? Or this gym. Dispatch says, patient is unconscious. You arrive, patient answers the door, wide awake, holding a soda. You stand there like, so, resurrection? And dispatch says, caller reports patient was hard to wake up. So, sleeping. They were sleeping. EMS is undefeated at waking people up. So let's talk about the most vague chief complaint in EMS history. I just don't feel right. That's it. That's the complaint. You ask follow-ups. Pain? Not really. Nausea? Shortness of breath? Maybe earlier. Vitals? Perfect. You ask, what specifically made you call 911? And they say, I don't know, I just feel off. Cool, me too. That's called existing. You transport anyway because EMS logic. And somewhere in the chart, you write patient reports generalized malaise, which is medical for I have no idea. All right, let's talk about nursing home logic. And let's be respectful. By respectful, of course, I mean honest. Because nursing homes operate in a parallel universe. You walk in, ask for paperwork, and they hand you a clipboard, a sticky note, or absolutely nothing. You ask, what's the patient's baseline? And they say, oh, usually like this. Like what? That's not descriptive. You ask, when did this start? And they say, oh, I just got on shift. Or, I'm not usually on this wing. Of course you did. Of course you're not. This patient has been altered for 12 hours. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows when. Nobody knows anything. But they called you. And somehow you're expected to fix it. All right, so let's turn the spotlight inward a little bit and talk about stupid things that medics have said on scene. Because medics say dumb stuff too. For example, patient actively vomiting. Medic says, okay, don't throw up. Wow, revolutionary. Or this, during a painful IV attempt, just a little pinch. No, that was a lie, and we all know it. Or my favorite accidental threat, if you don't calm down, we're going to have to take you to the hospital. They already called 911. That is not the leverage that you think it is. Time to talk about the worst times to get a call. Because there are 3 cursed moments. 1, you just cleaned the truck. 2, you just heated up food. Or 3, you just sat down. The second you relax, dispatch senses it. You'll be mid-bite, fork halfway to mouth, and the tones drop. And you stare at the food like it betrayed you. That meal will never taste the same again. EMS superstition is fake, except when it's not. For example, my favorite supervisor, every time she pees at the station, we can expect that the rest of the shift is going to be terrible. Not just a call here and there terrible. I mean, the worst calls that you have ever run in a 24-hour period are going to happen after she pees. And that's a fact. It happens every single time. And it's not her fault. Her pee is just cursed. Well, maybe it is her fault because she continues to pee at the station despite all of our best efforts to get her not to. I've offered to buy her a shiwi so she can pee outside. I've offered to take her down to the gas station. I've told her that she needs to pee at the hospital before she comes back. But despite all of these reasonable options, she continues to refuse them and pee at the station. So Heather, if you're listening to this, just know that we do blame you for peeing, and you need to get like a Purewick or a Foley cath so that you don't pee at the station anymore. And if you're on shift when you're listening to this, Apple. Sorry, the word apple is an inside joke with that supervisor because that's another superstition of hers. Every time she eats an apple or says the word while she's at work, she gets terrible calls. So her and her partner developed code words. They called them red crunchies or green crunchies. But when we're mad at her, we say apple. So, again, apple. So let's talk about EMS arguments that will never die. Because some arguments will outlive us all. Lights and sirens. Are they necessary? Are they dangerous? Are they both? Depends who you ask. Backboards. Diesel versus gas. ALS versus BLS ego. Paper charts versus EPCR. No one wins. Everyone argues. Nothing changes. That's EMS tradition. You ever have a call where everything was technically correct, but still felt wrong? Vitals are good, assessment's clean, transport smooth. Then later someone asks, well, why didn't you? And you think, well, because it wasn't indicated. Well, they say, yeah, but EMS lives in the land of yeah, but. You did everything right, still feels wrong. That's the job. So here's the thing. If you didn't laugh during this episode, you're either brand new or you're lying. This job is ridiculous. The situations are ridiculous. The conversations are ridiculous. And somehow we normalize all of it. Laughing at EMS isn't disrespectful, it's survival. Because if you take every call seriously, every policy personally, and every stupid moment to heart, this job will eat you alive. So laugh, share your stories, shake your head, go back to work. And remember, if EMS made sense, we wouldn't be able to do it. This is the ToneDrop Podcast. Thank you for listening, and join us on the next episode.